Well, Happy New Year, everybody. Um, Same old story, different year, maybe. So, remember I did a video probably about a month ago talking about my summary of the 2018 legalization unfolding all over the world, whether it be for medical marijuana or decriminalizing or full adult use. My theme for 2018 was that it was a corporate marijuana takeover unfolding everywhere, and that, quite frankly, the story was the same everywhere. Whether it be Michigan or Jamaica or wherever anybody was talking about doing legalizing marijuana, they're talking about this. The same pattern emerged. The regulations that choked people that used to do it, people that grew civil disobedience style like myself or others who, without us leading the way and pioneering a lot of things, there wouldn't be a push to legalize marijuana, because that was also us doing that too. And you need only look really to to Canada. I did a video about Canada's brutal corporate marijuana takeover, and all you got to do there is follow somebody like Jody Emery, who details, or Dana Larson, another activist. They both detail the absurdity of the new regulations, and basically it's just another form of prohibition that prohibits anybody else from trying to have a personal economy with marijuana, so that the corporate overlords can have the whole pie chart to themselves. And this is everywhere. This is in Michigan. We had a unique situation in Michigan where the system that was here before didn't allow the people that grew to actually be profitable or have any money above board. And then when the licensing scheme came in 2016, you had to have basically a mountain of cash to be able to get in, to get a license, like anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million to be a grower. I'm sorry, but I was never allowed to make that kind of money. And they know that this is what they're doing. This is the takeover has been going on for a while, and in places like Cali, where they pushed growers and dispensaries basically underground into unincorporated areas, or they were already there, and then they decided that, hey, we're going to clamp down on you guys, or if you're some grower that's been growing for 3-4 generations, you might not be able to get afford to make it into the regulations. Yeah, I don't know where my phone is, so sorry about that. Anyway, meanwhile, they're basically trying to kind of erase the culture of cannabis. The packaging becomes the sterile, almost looks like medical or dangerous substance like uranium or, plutonium or some shit, like foil packed with warnings, and warnings that don't make sense, like warnings that aren't scientifically proven, as we've seen, especially in Canada. So it's pretty much the same story everywhere. And another thing I mentioned is that the arrests have actually gone up since all this legalization has been happening around the country. Well, that's because they're still emboldening, they're still propping up this idea that there's this black market where dangerous cannabis sales are happening, and people are enforcing it with the guns or what. It's absurd. They have to keep the boogeyman alive so that they can make their $10 a gram, so they can make their corporate earnings projections come true, and so that the tax people that already have the taxes earmarked to what they want to spend it on, they want to make sure they get every penny of that. Creates like a slave-driven system. And then you have a place like a situation where, like in Michigan, quite frankly, it's as simple as the regulations are causing, these big grow facilities to pop up where you have, somebody trying to grow like 6,000 plants. All of a sudden, they don't have anybody to help them grow that. They need people with experience, so they're telling people like to turn in their caregiver card so that they can make $10 an hour or $15 an hour working at some weed factory. And it's just absurd, this takeover. So that was 2018 in a nutshell. And if you don't believe me, just go back and watch my videos about it, man. Every time something happened, I made a video about it. From Massachusetts to California, from Jamaica to the UK, where they grow medical marijuana by the ton, ship it out, but you can't even have a medical marijuana in the UK without a super special license that only like a handful of people have, I think. So by and large, 2018 was the year of the corporate marijuana takeover as predicted and as stated early on, and 2019 is starting to take on this weird new thing with the marijuana takeover being looked at as the corporate thing being like not a good thing. I mean, maybe my talking points are getting through somehow, but this is Ted Cruz tweeted out this I can't even believe this is Ted Cruz saying this. He's the guy that Forbes magazine once had on a list of being one of the top 5 anti-marijuana people in the Senate. So he said, "This is not the Onion. LA Times reports that marijuana sales in California are much lower than expected because over-regulation makes it so incredibly hard to start a small business." Huh? And I mean, that literally sparked a conversation on, all over the place, whether it's TV or the internet or whatever, that, Ted Cruz started this new conversation criticizing the corporate marijuana takeover. It's more, people finally are talking about it. Oh, wow, what happened to all those small business aspirations? They got squished by some big giant weed factory. Now, his last statement here almost sounds like he wants to do something about it. So he says, perhaps a pro-economic liberty movement blossoming out on the West Coast. I don't know about that. I mean, you live in Texas, you represent Texas. What are you going to do for people in Texas? Now, they don't even have legal structured marijuana, anything except for the super strict, mostly CBD only, or really low I don't even think it's THC. But anyway, they have licensed facilities for growing CBD. That's how they do it in Texas. So if you want to change things, why don't you start there? Or why don't you start at the federal government where you work? You can help get it out of the scheduling. Because, you can't do this small business minded stuff without everybody being able to do banking and, small business. They need loans. Small business loans can't get those without banking. Tax ID numbers and stuff. So this is all stuff that would have to be federally changed. We have to get it off the Controlled Substances Act in order to do that. So I don't know, if you got someone like Ted Cruz actually making a statement that sounds a little bit like it makes sense when it comes to this corporate takeover and marijuana policies going forward in the future, it gives me a little hope. And then over here we have Mayor de Blasio in New York City, who has been really tepid in his support for decriminalization and very nowhere to be found on legalization until just a few days ago here, literally like 4 days ago. He said this.
Support for the legalization.
Hold on.
Today I announce my support for the legalization of marijuana. But here's what I want to say. We have one chance to get it right. This is unlike so many other things that we have dealt with. We have a chance to get it right here from the beginning because we're at the starting line. And if we just legalize marijuana and don't deal with the underlying issues, we will look back and say what a lost opportunity it was. because there are issues of justice that must be addressed. And there are issues of opportunity that must be addressed. And legalization done the right way will marry opportunity with justice. That's where we need to go. And the people who are afflicted by unjust laws have the opportunity for economic progress, have an opportunity for redemption. I've said clearly we want New York City to be the fairest big city in America. The legalization of marijuana can help us take a big step in that direction, or done wrong, can set us back once again. It's up to all of us to decide. It's up to all of us to ensure that the people who do the voting in Albany vote in favor of fairness.
Well, I gotta say, I'm kind of impressed. Now, overall, like I said, I don't trust politicians ever. If this is your first time watching my videos, hi, welcome to the Daily Dope Show. My name is Brando the Weed Commando, and I don't trust the government. Never have. I've been smoking weed my whole life, and when I was very young, I scratched my head and said, why is this illegal? And then I started looking into it, and wow, I read The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Herer back in like the early 80s, and just about lost my mind on how insane that the corruption in the government is and always has been, because that happened back in the 1930s. But the story of marijuana's demonization and prohibition goes back even farther than that, all the way back to the 1900s. But back to the point at hand here, this social justice that he's talking about, and this giving opportunities to people that were marginalized by the drug war, he didn't even really come out and say it like that. It was like so watered down in platitude that he almost missed giving the point altogether. But I've seen him say it, and I've seen it written, so that he basically was saying, yes, we want minorities who were, previously being arrested and incarcerated for this. We want those are the people that we want to have giving the opportunity to run small businesses in the marijuana industry. Wow, and when he says, hey, we got to try to get this right here, we have a chance to do this right, I think he's talking about versus Canada, I guess, because Canada is the example that I'm going to point to as the absolute opposite of the right way to do this. And it's the full-blown corporate takeover / government takeover / monopoly system. And you can go on each one of my talking points there and argue against it if you want, but I can guarantee you I'll win, because I've been looking at this Canada thing for a minute, and I'm invested in it. Like, I'm betting on the corporate takeover to fail, but I'm betting on it to be successful enough to make me a little bit of money on some stocks. How about that? But so, do I believe de Blasio? Do I believe Ted Cruz? Not really. But if that's where the rhetoric is right now, I'm pretty happy, to be honest. But if you really want true social justice with cannabis, you got to take it out of the Controlled Substances Act, period. You take it out of the Controlled Substances Act, nobody will be able to get arrested for marijuana. Make it that way, end prohibition throughout the country. Every state has to get rid of this notion that marijuana is some kind of akin to some kind of criminal activity. Once we get there, we get it out of all these scheduling for illicit substances, which to me doesn't make any sense on any substance, especially marijuana, but whatever. That's how you're going to get social justice, no other way. Because as long as you don't do that, you're still going to have people that are going to make rules, and they're going to want the cops to enforce them so that people actually take the rules seriously. And in doing that, you're still going to arrest people, you're still going to marginalize people, you're still going to put people in jail. It's still going to be minorities. It's going to be people like me too, who, in some circles, they call me a criminal. I'm a criminal because I grew weed when it was illegal. You know what? I don't agree with that. If you think that you have to follow laws that are unjust, then you don't live in you don't have a liberty mindset. All right, if there's no victim, it shouldn't be a crime, and there's absolutely no way you can draw a victim on marijuana. So the drug war altogether is just ridiculous. There's no victim in any of the so-called crimes that they've made out of the drug war, and marijuana, cannabis, is the biggest example of corruption running the government, and it's been doing it since probably 1909 is when it really started taking hold. In 1937, they got their marijuana, prohibition, and in 1971, they got their full-on war on drugs, and the DEA, fully funded to fight marijuana, has gotten, biggest failed policy, biggest failed organization that never did anything that they claimed they would do. Every litmus test that you would give them, they failed miserably. As in, there's more marijuana than ever before, more people use it than ever before, it's more potent than ever before, it's cheaper than ever before. So big time failure there, but somehow we still give them the budget and increase their budget every year. We got to abolish the DEA, we got to get rid of the Controlled Substances Act altogether. We're doing it a little bit different this year, guys. This isn't just about weed anymore. In case you didn't notice, that's where I was going with this. This corporate takeover, we got to stop it in its foot tracks, and the drug war altogether has to come to an end. There's no justice in prohibition of drugs. None at all. It's all corrupt. It corrupts everybody, absolutely. And if you think it's some kind of solution, just look at the track record. But that's all I got on this one. Happy New Year again, and looks like it's going to be a busy year, guys, obviously. The big test for me is the Democrats. They took over the House, so now Paul Ryan's not standing in our way. We don't have Pete Sessions in our way. We can do pretty much anything we want. Because guess what? If you get one of these marijuana bills that's out there, and there's plenty to choose from, if you get that on the floor and debate it, there's not going to be any chance that it don't pass. All right? Anybody that votes no on sensible marijuana policies are going to lose in 2020. There's a lot of people that go up for re-election in 2020, and they're not going to put their name on a stupid vote like that in this climate. When it comes to people, if you look at all the polls, the overarching theme is that the vast majority of Americans feel that the federal government needs to lay off of marijuana policy completely. They need to let the states do what they're doing. They need to let veterans do it. They need to get it out of the Controlled Substances Act. That's pretty much that's where people are in this country. And the politicians, they would like to be there, but their donors won't let them. And if you don't believe in corruption, or you think I'm crazy for saying all the things I said about the government, and go ahead and keep thinking like that and see where it gets you. But I don't know. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tune in, updates coming on everything, and yep, peace.